Debate in Parliament today, changes to the Personal Data Protection Act, including tougher penalties.
Singapore Airlines does it again, this time selling out tickets for behind-the-scenes tours of its training centre.
And just one new COVID-19 case reported here today, the lowest in more than 8 months.
5:30 p.m. here in Singapore. Welcome to The Big Story. Coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom, I'm Olivia Quay.
I'm Haryanto Dimana. You can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode. Proposed amendments to the Personal Data Protection Act are currently being debated in Parliament. The bill is expected to be passed later tonight.
The proposed amendments include increasing the maximum financial penalty to 10% of an organization's annual turnover in Singapore or $1 million, whichever is higher.
During public consultations, concerns were raised about the higher financial penalties. And I would like to assure members, as well as the broader community, that the PDPC will ensure that financial penalties imposed are proportionate to the severity of the data breach. The bill also provides for ministerial discretion to review the effective date for these penalties to commence. And we intend for the revised financial penalty cap to take effect no earlier than 1 year after the Act comes into force.
Tech editor Irene Tam joins us now to talk about these proposed changes to the PDPA. Irene, what do you make of the proposed stiffer fines? Do you think they'll be enough to spur or even scare companies to beef up cybersecurity?
Just a quick recap. When a company is found guilty of a data breach under the proposed amendments, they can be fined up to 10% of its annual turnover in Singapore under it's still being debated in Parliament right now. The stiffer fine for companies brings Singapore's data protection law closer to the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation and is considered the gold standard. So for instance, GDPR fine on companies is up to 4% of their annual global turnover or 20 million euros for breach of rules. So Singapore, by upping our fine to 10% of Singapore turnover, it's much stiffer than the current maximum fine of $1 million. So a bigger stick is necessary because bigger firms, which have resources at their disposal, will and should sit up and should pay more attention to data protection and potential breaches. Some of them with operations in Europe or are already processing some personal data of European customers, they have already started following the stricter requirements under GDPR. So for them to comply with Singapore's law is just a natural extension of their strict following of the GDPR, compliance with GDPR. So, but however, some of the gold standards have not been implemented in Singapore yet. For instance, GDPR gives consumers the right to ask for their personal data to be erased. Even at this point, this right of erasure has not been proposed under the amendments, under the PDPA proposed amendments.
I see. Well, Irene, does it affect SMEs differently? What's in place to ensure that our data with these SMEs is secured?
Well, it's the same penalty, up to 10% of revenue or $1 million, whichever is higher. That said, I think I really think that the more you have, the more is expected of you. The raised ceiling will affect bigger companies more than they affect smaller companies. But SMEs with limited resources may not be able to hold up if the compliance cost for them goes up, especially during this current COVID pandemic. They do not get off the hook still, the fine still applies to them. But what is needed, I think, over the long term is for continuous education. SMEs have to look at what they collect and do not over-collect information. For example, if the last 4 digits of a consumer's NRIC numbers or mobile numbers are enough to identify them, say in a lucky draw or a membership enrollment, then there's no need to collect more information. But Minister Iswaran did assure the House in Parliament earlier today that the Commission will ensure that fines will be proportionate to the severity of the data breach.
Right. Irene, let's talk about the two breaches that were reported over the weekend, RedMart and Itigo. These hacks come as a surprise given that these companies' businesses are primarily online and deal a lot with personal data. Wouldn't they already have some sort of cybersecurity measures in place?
Right. It is surprising and yet not surprising because on one hand, data is key to their business workflow. Yep. In the RedMart breach, we see that the passwords are already encrypted and credit card numbers were stored partially. So the partially stored numbers were stolen and the encrypted passwords were stolen. The fact that they were encrypted and partially stored makes it harder for the hacker to decrypt and organize the information. But it is still possible to to decrypt and to kind of do reverse engineering to get more information. And the biggest threat is actually phishing, where consumers are told, where hackers impersonate as somebody familiar to consumers, or to be pretend to be from reputable organizations, say Lazada or RedMart, and entice consumers to give more information, like leak their passwords, for example. So looking back at the RedMart breach, it seems like the leaked database is unsecured. And not securing your database is not good. And I think RedMart has no excuse not to do that. But if you look at the timeline of the data exposure, it could have coincided with RedMart's integration with Lazada, and someone could have overlooked this very important aspect.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Irene, for coming on the show. That was tech editor at the Straits Times, Irene Thum.
Also in Parliament, Senior Minister of State for Health, Koh Poh Koon, cited medical cost inflation, demographics and medical advancements over the years as the reasons for the rise in MediShield life premiums.
Annual payouts have increased by 40%, while the number of claimants has gone up by 30%. Dr. Koh added that between 2001 and 2019, the average hospitalization bill size in public healthcare institutions went up by about 6% a year on average.
The government had considered deferring MediShield Life review and consequent premium increases given the current difficult economic situation with COVID-19. However, I must emphasize that it was important that MediShield Life remains solvent and sustainable so that it can meet its obligations in time to come.
MPs Gerald Giam and Leong Man Wai called for the actuarial report of the specific factors behind the raised MediShield life premiums to be made publicly available. But Dr. Koh said that there are no plans to release the information.
The member must note that this is not proposed by government. This is an external consultant who proposes the premium, audited by an external auditor, and report this yearly in Parliament, where members get a chance to question about the proportioning of the fund and the usage. So I think transparency is not an issue here.
Meanwhile, small businesses affected by COVID-19 may terminate their contracts without penalty if they are unable to agree on new terms with the other party. This under proposed laws introduced in Parliament today.
This will apply only to commercial contracts, including those with the government under the third set of proposed amendments to the COVID-19 Temporary Measures Act. They were tabled by Second Minister for Law Edwin Tong on an urgent basis, allowing the changes to be debated tomorrow.
An update on the COVID-19 situation here. Just one new case was confirmed today. It's the lowest since February 25th, which had a single patient as well.
Today's sole case is an imported patient who had been placed on stay-home notice on arrival in Singapore. Now, more details will be released tonight.
In other local news, from December 1st, all schools will require students to use either the Trace Together token or mobile app for entry. December will be a grace period where the scanning of NRIC or student passes will still be allowed. The Education Ministry encouraged parents and students to collect and carry their tokens on them, as students may not have access to their mobile phones at all times. Although students without the token or app will not be denied entry into the schools, they may not be able to take part in activities activities like external CCAs or learning journeys where they're brought on trips outside of school.
More than 1,900 jobs are on offer in the early childhood sector, with 8 in 10 for PMETs. These include preschool teachers, centre leaders and childcare services managers. Another 290 jobs available for non-PMET roles. Job seekers who wish to join the sector as educators must attain either an early childhood certificate or diploma offered by the National Institute of Early Childhood Development or accredited programs.
Couldn't get a slot for the behind-the-scenes tours of the Singapore Airlines Training Centre? Well, you're not alone. With more than 6,800 bookings received, registrations were closed just 9 hours after opening yesterday morning due to overwhelming demand. Those who secured a slot will tour the SIA training facility in Upper Changi. There's a maximum capacity of 500 customers each day. Now, SIA said that add-on experiences to the Inside Singapore Airlines tours also received overwhelming response and were oversubscribed.
Meanwhile, the Esplanade is reopening for ticketed live performances this month with a Baybeats backstage experience and a new lunchtime concert series. This year's Baybeats will be an intimate experience for limited groups of 20. Now, this is unlike previous years when the Alternative Music Festival played to crowds of thousands across different stages at the Performing Arts Complex. Fans of live performances can also look forward to ticketed events for the Esplanade's Kala Utsavam or Indian Festival of Arts, which is on later this month.
Now, with just 1 day to go, the US election is down to the wire. Donald Trump and Joe Biden will hold events in battleground states that will be keys to victory. While national opinion polls are pointing to a Biden win, his lead isn't very wide in a few states, and he has been slipping in some polls.
So, will the Democrat make it all the way to the White House, or Donald Trump get 4 more years? The election is being closely watched in our region. On ST's Asian Insider premiering at 8 p.m. tonight, Elizabeth Law in Beijing looks what a second Trump administration would mean for China, while Nirmala Ganapathy in New Delhi explains what a Biden presidency would mean for India.
For President Donald Trump, while we have seen that he has been very tough on China, he's really ramped up this trade war and diplomatic relations are really at the lowest in 40-something years. The thing is that he has also been quite good for the Chinese leadership in the sense that this sort of rhetoric has sparked a brand of nationalism. It's been good for Xi Jinping's personal standing. It's been good for the Chinese government's personal standing. It has really helped the country to band together in a way that, look, America is trying to stop our rise and we need to band together because we are going to war. So that has been great for the Chinese leadership here.
Even though India-US ties enjoy bipartisan support, there is unease within the establishment about the Democrats' record on speaking up on human rights, on the issue of Kashmir. In 2015, President Obama came to India, but just before leaving, he spoke about religious harmony in India and the importance of it. So that's not been forgotten. There is a sense that if the Democrats do come to office, that there will be greater scrutiny on human rights.
Well, for full coverage of the vote, check out the US election tab on straitstimes.com, where you can find special reports, analyst views and graphics, and of course, the results when they're announced.
Elsewhere around the world, Malaysia's parliament, which started sitting today, was adjourned after only 3 hours. This following concerns over risk of exposure to COVID-19 and will likely shorten its daily sitting for the rest of the week, except Friday when the federal budget is tabled. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Taqiyuddin Hassan, revealed that a staff member of the Senate, which shares the same buildings as MPs, had contracted the virus.
Germany is leading a further tightening of coronavirus restrictions in Europe that have triggered anger and frustration across the continent. As part of a round of shutdowns from today until the end of the month, Germans will not be confined to their homes, but bars, cafes and restaurants must close, as well as theatres, operas and cinemas.
Tighter lockdown rules were also set to kick in today for Belgium, which has the most COVID-19 cases per capita in the world. Portugal too has ordered a partial lockdown starting Wednesday. And in France, from tomorrow, supermarkets will be barred from selling non-essential items to protect small shopkeepers who have been forced to close.
According to UK reports, Prince William contracted COVID-19 in April at a similar time to his father, Prince Charles. The Sun newspaper reported that Prince William was treated by palace doctors and followed government guidelines by isolating at the Norfolk family home. The paper added that he kept his diagnosis a secret because he did not want to alarm the country. BBC confirmed the news from sources late yesterday, but Kensington Palace and the office of Prince William refused to comment officially to the news outlet.
World Health Organization Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus is self-quarantining after someone he had been in contact with tested positive for COVID-19. He said in a tweet that he doesn't have symptoms but will self-isolate and work from home over the coming days. In another tweet, he stressed that, quote, "It is critically important that we all comply with health guidance because this is how we will break chains of transmission, suppress the virus and protect health systems."
Hey, before we go, I just want to bring this to the attention of our viewers who are, like me, are parents. The Straits Times launched a smart parenting microsite today, and it aims to help parents be more involved in their kids' development and education.
As is education, and parenting reporters will search out experts in different fields and get them to explain, verify and advise parents. They'll also seek out officials and experts at the ministries and other relevant agencies to explain schemes and policies.
It's not just the new microsite, though. There's also a smart parenting section in the paper on Mondays. And over the next few weeks, it will focus on reading, because if there's one thing that parents can do to help their child succeed in school and life, it would be to immerse them in reading, of course.
If you're looking at the very young, say the 0 to 1 year old, you can start with books that have got rhythmic language, and then you can choose books with rhymes, nursery rhymes, finger plays. As they grow older, say you're looking at the 1 to 3 years old, you can choose books that have got still the rhythmic language or nursery rhymes, but you expand it a little bit more by having books that allow them to do some kind of actions based on the book, like flip the flap or push and pull tabs or touch and feel. After they're 3 years old, you can start looking at everyday experiences. When they are younger, you choose concepts, right? The concepts of colors, the concept of numbers. But when they are slightly older, what you can do is to choose books that associate them with their everyday lives.
So parents, do check out the new Smart Parenting microsite. I hope you'll find it helpful, and visit straitstimes.com for more news and videos.
And of course, remember to also subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below. Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Quay. Join us tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.